A plane crashes in China. It's a Boeing 737 carrying 132 people, so we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that and what some of the speculation is going on with that. In other news, Clarence Thomas is hospitalized with an infection, and the left starts to cheer as they start to bring up the idea of whether or not it's time to impeach him. Mariupol refuses to surrender to Russian forces, and Bloomberg tells you, just eat the lentils and stop complaining about the high prices. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, Edheads. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. Welcome to spring. We'll have a brand new opening theme on KTZed Redemption tonight because we change it with the seasons. So we are starting into season 2 of KTZed Redemption tonight. So come back and join us for that. It has been nice and warm throughout the day. I actually slept with the windows open last night. It might have been just a little bit too cool for that, but you know, I did it anyway, and then I wound up not sleeping anyway because I had massive indigestion from, I have no idea what the hell I got indigestion from, but it sucked. So pretty much as soon as we click the off the camera button, I'm going down and taking a nap for a little while. But before we do that, it is Monday, it is in the morning, and we have news to cover from over the weekend here. By the way, it is not as bad by any stretch of the imagination as some of the weeks that we've had through here on a Monday. I mean, we might get done before Daily Ignoramus today. It'll depend on how long we spend on each Ukrainian topic, because those seems to be the big killers there. But it's not near as bad as some of the Monday mornings that I've set up here with 40 to 50 tabs of news, with mostly leftover stuff from Friday on top of all of the breaking news that happened over the weekend, and they were cramming a lot of it down our throats over the weekends here. But we're going to get into it. We're going to get started over here on Contemporary. But before we do, guys, make sure you go over, check out the webpage, turnsofpagesproductions.com. We are at a start page. Starting in April, we are going to start launching hard campaigns to go get everything paid for on Turns of Pages Productions. We're looking to get about $2,000 to go set up. We have a Give, Send, Go set up, but unfortunately, with Give, Send, Go, they only allow you to do so. They only allow you to be a part of things if you put your government name up on the front. And, well, that ran into a little bit of a problem with me, but I am going on Brian Nichols. We're going to go name docs, so my government name is going to be out there. Those of you who are in the know already know what it is, but I mean, I haven't said it out loud here, but that's what I'm going to do on Brian Nichols. I'm going to say it right out loud. So get set for that, and then I hope that all of you start sharing this fundraiser around. As soon as my name drops, I hope you're all sharing this fundraiser around everywhere, telling the world about Turns of Pages Productions and the fact that we'll carry great shows such as the Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Breckenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, the new upcoming project with Britt and Sean Hickman and the Porch Boys. Plus another show will be joining us up at launch here. $2,000 to help get Bobby Joe paid, because we like Bobby Joe. Nobody works for free around here, so definitely go and check that out. turnsofpagesproductions.com, tsp-prod.com also. And if you would like to help out and you're in the know, help raise money for Turns of Pages is going to be givesendgo.com/turnsofpages101. Please do not share until after we get the name docs out there. But thank you guys so much for coming in and helping us out. All right, before we do finance for the morning, I advertised it, I teased it on Twitter, but I wanted to get something off my chest. And this happened because I checked my Twitter when I first decided I was going to get out of bed, and I was kind of, by the time that the 6 o'clock alarms were rolling off, because it goes off every 10 minutes at around 6, by the time those were going off, my body was deciding it wanted to go back to sleep, so I was struggling to keep myself awake and checking in over on my Twitter, And between me getting out of bed and me getting over to the desk, this happened here. So I wanted to talk about it. You guys know that I almost never use my platform to talk about personal things that happen with me. Wink. I have glasses. You can't see that I'm winking here. But I wanted to talk about this because I got a follow from somebody who I already hate. And I can tell you that right off the bat, somebody I already hate. Let's get the live chat up so I can see what you guys are doing over here. By the way, make sure you guys do come in here and talk too, because I definitely love seeing your comments after the fact. I don't like just reading it on Friday. I do read every comment after the fact. So come in and let me know how you feel about the news here. But this just got on my nerves, and I wanted to talk about this for just a second, if you'll indulge me for just a moment here. This is from my Twitter. I tweeted this out after the fact here. That I made my choice a while ago not to vote Trump for a third time, because I voted for him excitedly the first time, reluctantly the second time. And I am being a little bit disingenuous in this tweet because I am still on the fence, and I might, maybe, the third time, but it would be really hard for me to do that the third time. But that's my choice. That is my choice. And if you guys want to vote for Trump, that's your choice too. I may not agree with it, I may not like it, but I respect the fact that you can make this choice. I go on and tweet out, @Real John A. Castro doesn't want you to have that choice. He's using civil courts to take that choice away from the people. I went on the thread and said, Republicans, in quotes, so-called like Castro, are so afraid of people choosing that he'll do whatever he can to bar people from running. This is establishment trash, meant to keep a ruling class in power and you out of it. So let's go look at Mr. John A. Castro, who follows me for whatever reason. I did not follow back. I have no intention to. This guy is a fucking piece of garbage. And he's probably botted to shit because, let's see, when did he join Twitter? October of 2016. Okay, so he's been there for a while, but I mean, who is this guy? He's an entrepreneur. He's probably, again, botted to absolute ever-loving fuck. Because he goes against the evil orange man. But let's just look at this. His pinned tweet. 1 of 4. Well, no, before we do that, let's look at his description. 2024 presidential candidate. Republicans suing Trump under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to ban him from office for the January 6th Selfie Fest. Pinned tweet, November 18th, 2021. The 14th Amendment, Section 3 is clear. Because Trump incited an insurrection, he is forever disqualified from holding public office. But only a fellow Republican presidential primary candidate has federal judicial, quote, standing to sue Trump to remove him from the ballot. 2 of 4, because the GOP leadership has abandoned the rule of law, because the GOP leadership has abandoned conservative principles, because the GOP leadership has succumbed to the cult of personality, our democracy is now in peril. For all of these reasons, I intend to pursue the Republican nomination for the presidency of the U.S. I intend to bring a federal lawsuit against Trump to disqualify him from being on the ballot in every swing state. He will not reclaim the White House. Notice, by the way, he's not saying that he will bar him from office from being on the ballot in every state, just every swing state. They don't care about him being in states that he's going to win by double digits. If this was a real emergency, they would be barring him from a ballot in every state under a federal lawsuit. 4 of 4. I do this knowing full well the enormous pressure this will put on my personal life. But for the sake of our nation, I am risking my life, my wealth, and my sacred honor. So stunning, so brave. I will see this through to the end, formal announcement, to follow in the coming months. And of course, he has the rhino as his symbol. Let's go back and look at some of the other things that this gentleman has tweeted out. You know how they won the Cold War? We outspent them. We bankrupted them. They couldn't keep up. You know how we beat Russia in the Ukraine proxy war? We outspend them. We bankrupt them. And they won't be able to keep up. Again, Putin is learning this the hard way. Full support for the Ukraine, of course. Government officials should be personally liable when they violate constitutional rights. If we start bankrupting corrupt government officials, we might see some change. Going on the Kim Davis thing, which this guy is a left-wing activist. They're finding new ways to... This is not a Republican. This is a Democrat running as a Republican. But that's what this thing is. This, number one, first and foremost, this is not a Republican. I can tell that just by a quick scroll through his profile. This is not a Republican. This is your standard run-of-the-mill neoliberal who decided he needed to run as a Republican so he could have some magical standing to go and sue Trump. He's also talking about the case for impeaching Justice Thomas. I believe somewhere down here he said that he was a fiscal conservative. I know I scrolled through this a little bit longer here. But he says he's a fiscal conservative, and then he says he's going to go up and outspend Russia in the Ukraine proxy war. This is establishment trash meant to keep your voice out of office. I may disagree with you on whether or not to vote Trump. I know I disagree with Stephen Ignoramus on it. I disagree with Brady Leonard. Both people who I love dearly. Both men I love like brothers. But I disagree with them, ostensibly, on voting for Trump. But I don't want them to not have the ability to do so. That's the difference between me and Mr. Castro here. He doesn't want a democracy. He doesn't want a government by the people. He wants you. He wants it more like the LP. You vote for the people that we tell you to vote for, otherwise you're not a real insert party here. This is trash. And I hope he fails. I really do. It's the same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who I still think is a plant. But I don't want the people of Rome, Georgia, to not have the ability to vote for her if that's who they like. Madison Cawthorn, I think he's an asshole. The people of North Carolina can decide whether or not they want him representing them, not me. That's not my choice. But this gentleman here thinks that it's your choice, or it's his choice who you vote for. So that's what I wanted to start with. So that's what we see off of that. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Let's get into finance for the morning. Looking in at the Dow. The Dow was up on Friday, dropping down at the very beginning of trading, staying down through most of the day, and then it turned upwards towards the end of the day, closing up at 34,754.93 points. That was just shy of 1% up throughout the day on Friday. On your Bitcoin is at $41,190 and 50 US cents. That fell $91.40, or about 0.25% throughout the last 24 hours. Looking at the last 5 days so we can get our weekend in on that. It looks like it took a significant jump on Thursday into Friday and then kind of held steady and then tumbled off again over the weekend. So that's what we see coming off your Bitcoin. Remember, the words of Joe Jorgensen and LP officials everywhere, you can only be a real libertarian if you sell all of your assets and buy everything in crypto. Note, this is not official financial advice. This is a trolling matter of a political party that tells us they're about freedom and is as anti-freedom as you can get. Always check with your financial advisor over any financial risks, rewards, benefits, or financial advice. All right. And on your scrap metal prices, over the weekend, copper has dropped, steel is still on the rise, and aluminum is down. Looking at your individual prices, I see a lot of red over in the copper column. In fact, it's all red. All copper prices dropped over the weekend. Looking at your steel, that is more mixed, with conduit steel is down, but light iron, number one steel, cast iron, rotors, complete car, shreddable steel are all up. Stainless steel remains down as well. On aluminum sidings up, aluminum copper fin is down, radiators are down, aluminum cans are up, sheet aluminum is down, rims are down. And on your individual plays, copper electric motors are down, ballasts are down, lead is down, but batteries are up. Catalytic converters are slightly mixed, with all but large foreign cats on the upswing. Large foreign cats have gone on the downswing. Compressors are down, alternators are up, carbide is up. Hard drives are down, motherboards are up, power supplies, low-grade boards, and PC Tower are all down. So check your scrap metal appropriately. Decide what it is that needs to go in and what it is that you need to keep at home for a little while, and head to the scrapyard accordingly. Let's see what IBD has to say. From Investors Business Daily, Dow Futures fall as oil prices jump again. Boeing dives on airplane crash. This is from Scott Latonin. Dow Futures have dropped in the stock market, slipped in and out of mixed trade Monday. Following its strongest week since November of 2020, U.S. oil prices jumped nearly $108 a barrel. Let's back up for just a little bit here. This is, by the way, and we got maybe 1% every day. Not even 1% on Friday. You know, we weren't seeing 2, 3, 4% rises and falls. As we especially weren't seeing 5% rises daily at all through the stock market through the last week. And they're saying this is the best week since November of 2020, since the election week. What does that tell you about this strong economy? Look how strong this economy is. U.S. oil prices jumped near $108 a barrel after the market closed. Nike will report quarterly earnings. Ahead of Monday's open, Boeing dove more than 6% after a Boeing 737-800 passenger jet crash in China. Elsewhere among the Dow stocks, Apple inched lower and Microsoft moved down 0.3% in today's stock market. United Health, a Dow Jones stock to watch, finished Friday in a buy range. EV leader Tesla rallied around 2% early Monday, on pace to add to Friday's gains. Amid the volatile headline-driven market, Costco, GlobalFoundries, O'Reilly Automotive, Regeneron, and Vertex Pharmaceuticals are among Monday's top stocks to buy and watch. Microsoft, Tesla, and Vertex are on the IBD leaderboard. Costco is an IBD swing trader stock. GlobalFoundries is an IPO leader. O'Reilly was Tuesday's IBD 50 stocks to watch pick. Today, Treasury yields, oil prices ahead of Monday's market open. Dow Futures lost 0.2% versus fair value. S&P 500 futures gained a fraction. NASDAQ wobbled narrowly higher and lower in mid-morning trade. Remember, overnight action in Dow Futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. Among ETFs, the NASDAQ 100 Tracker, Invesco QQQ Trust, and the SPDR S&P 500 ETF were both essentially flat ahead of Monday's open. The 10-year U.S. Treasury yield ticked up 2.18% Monday after ending Friday at 2.14%. Dude, when I start seeing these high Treasury yield numbers like this, I do get nervous. And I don't entirely know what the Treasury yield means for the economy, but I do remember all through last year when they first started talking about the Treasury yield, because all through the end of the Trump presidency, when we started contemporary, they never talked about the Treasury yield. But once Biden took office, the lower the Treasury yield got, the better people were talking about the economy. And now, we were talking now about 1.3, 1.4, 1.5% on the Treasury yield. And now it's 2.18 and 2.14%. Given what little bit I've learned about the Treasury yield, that does make me nervous. U.S. oil prices added to their rebound, jumping more than 4% Monday morning. That put West Texas above 108 a barrel. Last week, WTI briefly traded below 94 a barrel. So some stuff that's moving here. I know that the Boeing thing is going to affect what happens throughout the day here. That's going to be a lag on the Dow, but not on the S&P and the NASDAQ. So we'll see what happens off of that. Instead of going with another report on the markets, I wanted to talk about this one here. I wanted to talk just for a second about what the Daily Wire has to say about your interest rates, because they said it a bit more eloquently than I did when I talked about it on Friday. So this comes to us from the Daily Wire's Tim Meads. The Federal Reserve just raised interest rates. How will it impact your family? On Wednesday, the Federal Reserve voted to raise interest rates by a quarter percentage point in what many experts say is an attempt to fight the impacts of inflation. Americans are currently dealing with the worst inflation in 40 years, and the Biden admin is desperate to rein in the cost of consumer goods and the dwindling value of the dollar. On Monday, the Daily Wire's Cabot Phillips joined the Morning Wire podcast to explain why the Fed enacted such a policy and how it will impact the average American family. In short, the move could have a ripple effect that will touch everything from your home to your car payments. Essentially, the Federal Reserve interest rate establishes the target cost of borrowing money, Phillips explained, so whether you want a loan for a car, house, or land, banks determine their interest rate in large part on the rates set by the Fed. Now, since March of 2020, the Fed's rate has been between 0.25%, meaning you could basically get money for free because the government was worried about an economic slowdown during the pinko fucking pox, and wanted people to keep borrowing and spending money during the pandemic, he continued. The Fed committee that decides the interest rate meets every 6 weeks, and last Wednesday decided for the first time since 2018 to raise interest rates. These rates will periodically rise until they reach 2% by the end of the year, he added. After that, they're expected to reach 2.75% by the end of 2023. That would be the highest federal interest rate since 2008, he noted. John Bickley, co-host in the Morning Wire, asked Phillips how this would, in theory, help solve inflation. The general idea is that as interest rates go up, average people are less likely to take out loans because the deals aren't as good as they've been, he explained. As that happens, the idea is that people will stop borrowing money and spending money, which will leave fewer active dollars in the economy, hopefully curbing inflation. But, as Phillips noted, the rate hike will have a ripple effect throughout the economy. Yeah. For anyone taking out larger loans, they're going to notice this, Phillips reported. A 2% increase on a mortgage, for example, would mean that the $500,000 house you want to buy could be $10,000 more in the long run. If you have an existing car loan or federal student loan, those won't be affected because they're fixed rates, but others will, he clarified. For example, annual credit card rates are almost certainly going to go up this year, especially for people with lower credit scores, and banks will be more stingy this year on letting people open new lines of credit. If you're looking to buy a home right now, mortgage rates are going to be going up in the short term. If you have an existing mortgage that's not a fixed rate but a variable rate, you can also expect to start paying more in interest each month. So, and that's where I was going with the adjustable rates. Basically, it's going to be your credit cards and your mortgage that you already have existing, if you have an ARM, that are going to be hurting you the most. But just like they said, when you go on to your student loan payments or your car payment or a personal loan, or if you do have a fixed rate mortgage, you're not going to see this unless, of course, you go out to buy something new. This is going to put a hammer on the refinance market. So if you bought that house in the low 600s in credit, and now you want to go back and refinance it, number one, if this doesn't completely drop the market out of the housing market, which it possibly could, but if you want to go back and refinance that after the fact, you say, hey, you know what? I had a sucky interest rate because I was just rebuilding my credit when I bought the house. Now that everything's established, I'm in the 700, 750 range. I want to go back and refinance this house. Yeah, you're going to wind up with a higher rate. Possibly. You want to buy a new car. You know, the dealership finally has inventory back in. You want to get rid of that old clunker that you were driving around through the pandemic. And you saved money, you scrimped and you saved and you pinched, and you want to go buy that car. You want to go buy the new car that they have in stock. You want to buy one of the used cars that they got in for people that went out and bought the new cars. Guess what? That rate's going to be higher. So that's what we're seeing off of that. And that's what I tried to tell you up here on Thursday when we talked about this. But I was way off, and I was rambling because I thought this was a stupid idea. Now, I am hoping that the market crashes at least a considerable amount to some point, because starting in 2023, I'm going to be purchasing property. Hopefully in the midst of the crash. But we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Let's get into the big news of the day. Alright, starting here with CNN. Chinese airliner carrying 132 people crashes in southern China. From Yang Zhang and Helen Reagan. Let's watch the video first. just because I want to see
breaking overnight, a Chinese airliner with 132 people on board has crashed in southern China. Government aviation officials confirmed that a China Eastern Airlines jet went down in the mountains in southeast China. CNN's Will Ripley, live with us, has the breaking details. Will.
John, this is shaping up to be China's worst air disaster in at least a decade, possibly longer. And an indication of the seriousness of this is that the Chinese president, Xi Jinping, has just put out a statement calling for a full investigation, expressing condolences, and sending rescue teams to this area. This crash occurred in Guangxi region. It's a mountainous region. You can see these videos that are being shared on Chinese social media and also reported in Chinese state media, seeing these plumes of smoke rising up from the hills there. And also on social media, you could hear explosions in the background. So when you have 123 passengers and 9 crew members and a plume of smoke that big in a mountainous region, you can only imagine what the rescuers might be finding as they approach that crash scene. And it is a difficult area to reach. As you can see, the terrain there pretty heavily forested. China hasn't had a fatal airline crash, John, since 2010, when 44 people died when an airliner went off the runway. They had a slew of accidents back in the 1990s, you might recall. But in the last 20 years or so, China's really improved its safety record in the skies, largely due to more stringent air traffic control measures and also a largely young fleet of planes. So
all right, so that's what they're talking about with this here, and kind of showing some of the terrain that this crashed down into, where the rescue efforts are going to be and whatnot. Let's read what they have to say. A China Eastern Airlines jetliner carrying 132 people crashed in the mountains in southern China's Guangxi region on Monday afternoon, according to China's Civil Aviation Admin. The Boeing 737 was en route from the southwestern city of Kunming to Guangzhou when it lost contact over the city of Wuzhou. On board were 123 passengers and 9 crew members. CAAC said in a statement posted online. China's Eastern Airlines later confirmed those details and the number of people on board the aircraft at the time of the crash. China Eastern Airlines has activated the emergency mechanism, dispatched a working group to the scene, and opened a special line for emergency assistance to family members, the airline continued in a statement on its Weibo account. So this was where they were coming from. This is where they landed. This is where they intended to land. They almost made it. Almost made it. Chinese President Winnie the Pooh instructed the country's emergency services to organize a search and rescue operation and identify the causes of the accident, the state media reported. After the accident, Winnie immediately made instructions to start the emergency mechanism, organize the search and rescue, and properly deal with the aftermath, CCTV said. Rescue teams are en route to the accident scene where there is fire visible on the site, but the casualties are unknown. CCTV reported earlier, initial state media reports had indicated that there were 133 people on board. Footage posted online and shared by state media, People's Daily show plumes of smoke billowing from a mountainous forested area. Another clip shows what appears to be wreckage from the plane on a muddy mountain path. The colors of the Boeing and China Eastern Airlines website were changed to black and white in China as a sign of respect to the crash. So no details yet on what happened with this, but CNN, of course, came out to tell you that it happened. I didn't know that we always did and always talked about every plane crash that happened out here, but this is a significant one. We'll probably see some more details coming within the next 24 hours. We'll probably talk about more details about this on KTZed Redemption tonight, but for right now, I will just say F in the chat for the people who were on the plane. And from there, we will see what happens with that. All right. A little bit more F in the chat out of Pennsylvania. Like I said, we're not starting with the Ukraine stuff today because, thank God. Randy Gyllenhaal tweets out the video for us here. Breaking: 2 Pennsylvania state police troopers struck and killed on I-95 in South Philly. A civilian is also dead. Officials say troopers were trying to get a man who was walking on the highway into the patrol SUV when they were all struck by another vehicle. Is it the dude? I'm guessing it's the dude. They fucked that car up. Holy shit. Is that a minivan that popped him? It looks like it. Like an old 90s minivan. Old 90s, early 2000s. Yeah, they wiped the side of that patrol car out. Look at it. Just destroyed both doors on it. Police officials say the troopers were walking on the highway when hit. Their SUV also struck with its door ripped off. Looks like both of them on that side. Let's zoom that up a little bit and see if we can confirm. Yeah, it looks like they took both the doors off of that side. Two females in the striking vehicle. Appears to be the hatchback with front end damage. Both stayed on scene and will be questioned. NBC Philadelphia. A police procession to transport the bodies of the two troopers has arrived on I-95. Full details on the investigation here. NBC Philadelphia, which we are actually going to be reading. Oh, we got some more. Happening now. The Philly police procession arrives in Center City with the bodies of the fallen state police troopers.
In emergency crews, law enforcement, emergency responders.
Yeah, from what we're hearing too, from our reporters there on the scene, the officers were visibly distraught there, having to still continue to do their jobs.
In emergency crews, law enforcement, emergency responders.
Yeah, from what we're hearing too, from our reporters there on the scene, the officers were visibly distraught there, having to still continue to do their jobs.
In emergency.
So with that, I mean, I understand the respect, especially when it is somebody that's within the same organization as you are, to want to come out and do the procession right away. But that seems just a little bit over the top to me. I'm sorry. To do that before the investigation goes through and everything else, before the bodies are cold, to do the procession like that. Now, when they do the funeral procession, and I know the leftoids are going to hate this, because they're going to taxpayer money wasted on another fucking pig. I can understand doing a massive procession of the police officers when they have the funeral for these two guys, but, you know, in the morgue van, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. But I will say, I will put an F in the chat for the police officers. I know not a lot of people here will. Because they were legitimately trying to help. It's like they were trying to get somebody who was in a dangerous spot, clearly, off the highway, and lost their lives for their trouble, instead of doing it while they're trying to give a ticket to somebody. So that's what we see off of that. Let's read from ABC 6 Action News. 2 Pennsylvania state troopers, civilian killed in I-95 crash in South Philly, all lanes closed. From 6 ABC digital staff and Catherine Scott. I-95 is closed in both directions in South Philly after a crash killed 2 Pennsylvania state troopers and a civilian early Monday morning. It happened around 12:40 a.m. on the I-95 southbound near Stadium Complex, just north of Broad Street. Pennsylvania State Police confirmed 2 troopers and a civilian were struck and killed at the scene. State Police Patrol I-95 in Action News is told the troopers were making a traffic stop at the time. Were they? Because the tweets said that they were helping a walking motorist into the vehicle. So I've got 2 conflicting stories about this already. Further information concerning the circumstances of the crash is unknown at the time. Chopper 6 over the scene showed a patrol car severely damaged with its airbags deployed. The second damaged vehicle, a silver Chevrolet, could also be seen at the site. What kind of Chevrolet is that? I know I'm not up on my new Chevrolets right now, but that looks like an Aveo. But I thought they stopped making those because they were dangerous. Just before 6 a.m., a police procession with at least 25 cruisers and motorcycles escorting the troopers' bodies made its way from the crash scene to the medical examiner's office. And like I said, to me, that just seems a bit excessive. For right after the scene of the crash, before the bodies are cold. Again, if this was at the funeral procession, after they set the rites, laid the people to rest, laid the gentleman to rest, and the civilian as well, after they laid all these people to rest, if they want to do a procession like this along I-95, that is between the State Patrol and the state of Pennsylvania, and notably the municipality of Philadelphia. But at this point, this seems excessive. But still, I'm sorry that people had to lose their lives over this. I really am. But that's what we see off of that. All right. Let's talk about Justice Clarence Thomas. And this comes to us from our friends over at NPR. Justice Clarence Thomas has been hospitalized with an infection, Supreme Court says. This is from Emma Bowman. And remember, NPR needs your money, so make sure that you look for that big red donate button because they need your money. Your taxpayer dollars are not enough to keep them going right now. So make sure you hit that big red donate button. Make sure you tell them that you support them. And, as always, spread the communist ideals around the country. Never printing reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, 73, has been hospitalized with an infection since Friday and is expected to be released within the next couple days, according to the court. Thomas was admitted to Sibley Memorial Hospital in D.C. on Friday evening after experiencing flu-like symptoms, the Supreme Court said in a statement on Sunday evening. He underwent tests, was diagnosed with an infection, and is being treated with intravenous antibiotics. His symptoms are abating. He is resting comfortably, and he expects to be released from the hospital in a day or two, read the court statement. During his absence from the Supreme Court proceedings, Justice Thomas will remain involved in the consideration and discussion of cases based on written materials and recordings of the oral arguments, the court said. The justices will hear oral arguments on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Thomas is one of the conservative stalwarts on the High Court and has served for over 30 years, longer than any other current justice. The court did not say why it waited 2 days to reveal the news. As NPR's Nina Totenberg has reported, the health of Supreme Court justices is often cloaked in mystery. So, this is a very, very vague article. A lot of people are saying that he's in for the pinko fucking pox. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if that's the case. I know that there's been a lot of speculation around Clarence Thomas, especially with his wife, supposedly being involved in the January 6th selfie fest off of this. And plus, our friend John Castro, that we talked about at the beginning of the show, my new friend, my new best friend, decided to tell us the justification for impeaching and removing Justice Thomas, which probably amounts to the fact that he was appointed by evil George W. Bush. Or he doesn't vote in the way that they want him to, which is why they're going after his wife so goddamn hard. As far as Justice Thomas goes, I don't know what's going on with him. I hope that he lives a long and healthy life. I really do. It does seem a bit mysterious to me that in the midst of replacing Supreme Court justices by the Biden admin, Clarence Thomas would get sick at this time because, I mean, we all saw how suddenly Antonin Scalia was taken from us. And I also want to touch on what right-wing media is saying about this too, because a lot of them are claiming the fact that, well, BLM is wishing that Clarence Thomas would die. I will admit, if that's true, then I condemn that, because I do hope that Clarence Thomas has a long and healthy life. I wish the same thing for W. Now, once W dies, all bets are off, and I will gleefully dance on his grave, but I wish everybody a long and happy and healthy life. I have not seen any confirmation of BLM saying these statements about Justice Thomas. That doesn't mean they're not out there. That just means that I have not seen them. So I cannot confirm whether or not they are doing this, but I wish a full and healthy recovery to Justice Thomas. I hope that he's back on the court soon, and we will see what happens with that. All right, from the Blaze. Republicans are eyeing probes into Hunter Biden, Anthony Fauci, and more after midterms. And now for the cringe. It's like a mosquito in a nudist colony. It's a target-rich environment. And about the most unfortunate part of that is the fact that the quote that they quoted in the headline there came from my wonderful Senator, Ron Johnson. This is from Paul Saka. Republicans are eyeing up possible probes in the midterms that will target Hunter Biden, Dr. Fauci, and the handling of the southern border crisis. Past polls have suggested that Democrats are facing a 5-alarm fire. There looms concerning views on the direction of the country under President Brandon, and the best midterm election projections for Republicans in 40 years. Republicans are not only hopeful that they will take the House and Senate, but also take the reins on probes following the 2022 midterm elections. If Republicans garner a majority, they could launch probes on several fronts. When The Hill asked Senator Ron Johnson what he would like to investigate if the GOP gains a majority, he replied with a very vivid response. Like everything. It's like a mosquito in a nudist colony. It's a target-rich environment. I hope and pray that Ron Johnson is not in the Senate after this election term. I hope he gets primaried out. I really do. For Johnson, one of his top priorities is obtaining more transparency into the U.S. government's handling of the pinko-fucking-pox pandemic. There's so much more in terms of what happened with our federal health agencies that we need to explore, Johnson claimed. Last month, Rand Paul declared that he would continue to focus attention on Dr. Anthony Fauci. That is, Saint Anthony of Fauci, Paul Saka. Hallowed be his name, he is the patron saint of medicine. If we win in November, if I'm the chairman of the committee, if I have subpoena power, I'll go after every one of Fauci's records, Paul proclaimed. Last week, Fauci, the government's top infectious disease expert, hinted that he could be retiring soon. Another potential probe target could be Hunter Biden and the suppression of the stories surrounding his abandoned laptop. The New York Times, a former newspaper, admitted last week that key parts of the Hunter Biden laptop story, which first broke in October of 2020, could now be authenticated. The story was suppressed by Big Tech, which former Attorney General Bill Barr recently said definitely had an effect on the 2020 presidential election. In addition, the New York Post had their Twitter account blocked for 16 days. Jesus, I don't know what the hell is going on with my browser and why it's so laggy on this, but it keeps spitting that warning back out. I mean, Johnson said Republicans have been attempting to get Hunter Biden's travel records for a couple days now. So, would I like to see what happened with Hunter? Actually, I would. Not necessarily because I really care what happens to him in the private setting, and that's a big confusion with a lot of people, because I know we have, there are other people out there that are telling us that, oh, it's all these MAGA people out here. Well, they're out there and they're just telling us right here that they care about Hunter's laptop and they care about putting him in prison, but they don't care about the Trump kids. And really, I don't necessarily care about any of them, except for the fact that it seems pretty clear from the probes that we have out there that Joey Boy himself was directly benefiting from Hunter's business deals. And the New York Times essentially confirmed that. So I'd like to see where that goes, because that is a gigantic conflict of interest, especially given what's happening in the Ukraine right now as we speak. But that's what we see off of that. All right. Now we've got to go and talk about Ukraine. So strap yourselves in. We are all the way up to this Fox 9 article talking about Ukraine and what happened there. So let's get through it. Let's see what they've got to say, starting with the New York Post. Some of the action honk honk on the ground in the area. Russia airstrike hits Ukraine chemical plant. 8 killed at Kiev Mall. From Lee Brown. A Ukrainian chemical plant was targeted by a Russian airstrike early Monday, causing a terrifying evacuation as potentially deadly ammonia leaked for hours, local officials said. The plant in Sumy was hit hours after at least 8 died when a shopping center was demolished in the capital Kiev, and as many as 8 foreign and Ukrainian troops were killed in a cruise missile strike on a military training center in Rivne, officials said. Is it Kiev or Kyiv? Let's get the map up. Let's see where Sumy is. Because our friends over in the Big L Libertarian Party say that we can only complain about stuff if we can find it on a map. So let's actually look and see where this is on the map. Alright, so this is eastern Ukraine, close to the Russian border. A little bit northwest of Kharkiv, where we've seen a lot of the action there. Kind of a little bit above, but on the same general latitude as Kiev. A lot further east. So they're pretty much all over the map at this point. They've got Kiev surrounded. So that's fun. Hey look, there's a place in Ukraine called Romney. Surprise, surprise. Warning, ammonia leak, Sumy Regional Governor Dmytro Zhivitsky warned just after 4 a.m. on the attack at Sumy Kimprom plant at the outskirts of the city of about 263,000 people. Those within a 3-mile radius of the plant were told to either flee or shelter in a sealed area, with tips given on first aid for everyone affected. There's the plant. There's the plant on fire. At least 6 homes and 4 schools were damaged in the attack. Exposure to high concentrations of ammonia in the air can result in blindness, lung damage, or death, New York's health department notes. Well, ammonia is some serious shit, I can tell you this. But I wouldn't necessarily go to New York as your be-all, end-all of health policy, even if they are right in this indication, because they also said that the best thing to do to quarantine COVID patients was to put them into nursing homes, with your grandma. Once the emergency was lifted, Zhivitsky said the leak was a result of a Russian enemy shelling hitting a 50-ton tank of corrosive chemical. One plant worker was injured, but details were not revealed. Military spokesman Igor Konashenkov claimed that the leak was planned provocation by Ukrainian forces to falsely accuse Russia of the chemical attack. And that's where we're coming with this, and, pretty much everything that we talk about when we talk about the Ukraine. I don't believe it anymore. That has been a big thing for me from the beginning of this, because we get so many conflicting reports everywhere. I'm not going to say Ukraine is the bad guy. I'm not going to say Russia is the bad guy, because I have seen nothing but conflicting reports from the top. And I don't know who to believe. All I know is that they started throwing shells at 2 nuclear plants and now a chemical plant. 3 things that would commit a genocide on a local population in a war that both sides are desperately eager to get the United States involved in. That's what I know. I don't know who's at fault. I don't know who's the asshole here. And I have seen more than enough evidence to take that both directions. I'm not going to put the little blue and yellow pin on. I'm not going to come out and say, "All hail Putin!" I'm not going to say either side of this. I'm just going to tell you what the mainstream media wants you to believe about this, why I question it, and remind you that I don't know what's right or wrong. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. However, Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs said early Monday that it strongly condemns the chemical plant attack and for Russia spreading foul lies as information cover-up to commit more war crimes. We call upon the world community to be vigilant in order to properly counter the next aggressive plans of the Russian war criminals, the ministry said. The Kremlin has also repeatedly denied attacking civilians during its so-called special military operation, yet shocking footage showed a 10-story shopping center in Kiev completely destroyed overnight. So, a bunch of stuff there, a bunch of stuff to talk about, a bunch of stuff to go with that. So that's what we see from that. Let's grab one from, I believe this is Business Insider. Yes, it is. From Insider, an elite Ukrainian drone unit exploits the cover of night to destroy Russian tanks and trucks while their soldiers sleep, report says. From Aliyah Shaoib. An elite Ukrainian drone unit is destroying the weaponry of the invading Russian forces as the soldiers sleep, the Times of London reported. Aerorozvitka, a specialist air reconnaissance unit within the army, says it destroyed dozens of priority targets, including Russian tanks, command trucks, and other vehicles in nighttime raids, the paper reported. Russian forces stop moving during the night and typically hide their tanks in between houses and villages where conventional artillery cannot strike them. Yaroslav Honchar, the unit commander based in Kiev, told the paper. But the elite drone unit, which has dozens of squads of expert drone pilots, has these stationary vehicles in its crosshairs. "We strike at night when Russians sleep," Honchar told the paper. "In the night, it's impossible to see drones. We look specifically for most valuable truck in convoy, and we hit it precisely. And we can do it really, really well, with very low collateral damage. Even in villages, it's possible. You can get much closer at night," he said. The unit's arsenal of drones range from cheap commercial ones to heavy-duty octocopters that have been modified to drop anti-tank grenades and to see with thermal cameras, according to the paper. The R-18 drone has a 4-kilometer range and a capacity to drop 5-kilogram bombs, is particularly prized by Honchar's drone warriors. The paper said the team also uses PD-1 or Punisher drone developed by Ukraine that can carry 3 kilograms of explosives and hit targets up to 30 miles away. Since Russia began its invasion, Ukrainian forces have had success in using drones such as the highly rated Turkish-made Bayraktar TV-2 to destroy the equipment of invading forces. Justin Bronk, a research fellow at the Royal United Services Institute, wrote in The Spectator. The success of the drone speaks more to the skill of the Ukrainian operators and the incompetence of the operational failures of the Russian forces, Bronk wrote. Aerorozvidya's drone unit, which flies up to 300 missions a day, according to the Times, operates using Elon Musk's Starlink satellite system, which was activated in Ukraine days after Russia invaded. So, this has been something that I've noted about this entire situation here. Now, the Western media is desperate to try to convince us that Russia wants nothing more than to hang on to this territory, to hang on to Ukraine and make this part of the Soviet Union. But I'm telling you right now, and this goes back to the same argument to argue against what Eric Swalwell said. They're bringing an awful lot of collateral damage and an awful lot of infrastructure damage for a territory that they seem intent to keep. Swalwell can come and shake the nuclear weapons of the U.S. military at the U.S. citizens who won't give their guns up. But realistically, nobody's going to pull that trigger on U.S. citizens, especially within their own country, where their own infrastructure is. Even if they don't care about the human life, which it appears that Swalwell has admitted the fact that they don't, even if they don't give a flying fuck about the human lives out there, they're destroying things that they will have to rebuild in order to install their own people into these areas. It's the same thing with Russia. They don't seem intent on keeping this territory. They seem intent on destroying it. And furthermore, with the munitions that they're throwing on these tanks, the drone guy says, oh yes, we can drop munitions on tank and have minimal collateral damage. Well, if they're hiding the tanks in between houses, yeah, it doesn't look like there's a lot of collateral damage on the outside, but wait until you see the broken 2x4s and the superstructure inside of that thing. They seem very comfortable destroying their own cities, just as much as they say that Russia is intent on keeping the territory. So I don't know. That's part of the reason I have questions about this, but hey, they're fighting amongst each other. From USA Today, Ukraine rejects Russia's demand for surrender of Mariupol in exchange for safe passage. Zelensky seeks help from Israel. Live up. And we'll be talking about the Israel thing separately, of course, because I think that was funny too, from John Bacon, David Jackson, and Jorge L. Ortiz. I kind of wish Arvold was going to be here for this because he seems to be the one who's got the most evidence that it's all Nazis over in Ukraine. But let's see what these three authors have to say. Ukraine has rejected a Russian offer to allow two safe corridors out of the besieged city of Mariupol in exchange for Ukrainian fighters laying down their arms. The Russian news agency TASS reported the offer, citing Colonel General Mikhail Mizintsev, the head of the Russian National Defense Control Center, and said residents on the southern port city were given until 5 a.m. Monday to respond. Mizintsev didn't have to wait long for the answer. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk rejected the idea outright. There can be no talk of any surrender. Laying down arms, we have already informed Russia's side about this, she told the news outlet Ukrainian Pravda. I wrote instead of wasting time on 8 pages of letters, just open corridor. The pounding of Mariupol intensified Sunday, and a top U.S. official expressed concern about the prospect of Russian organized concentration and prisoner camps as Russia's bloody assault on Ukraine waded deeper into its 4th week. The Mariupol City Council accused the Russian military of bombing an art school where 400 people had taken shelter. There was no immediate word on casualties at the school, but the City Council said on social media the building was destroyed and people could remain under the rubble. Russia continues genocide of Ukrainian people and civilians of Mariupol, the Post said. Every war criminal will answer for his crimes against humanity, against people of Mariupol. The attack on Mariupol prompted a local police officer and video verified by the Associated Press to appeal for help to President Biden and Emmanuel Macron. Please, please enter the war. Please, just do it. Enter the war. Come into the war. Please. So, and I mean, as far as for the civilians, the citizen aspect of Mariupol, I'm telling you right now, if in some bizarre alternate universe, if Iraq or Afghanistan or a joint coalition of Middle Eastern countries invaded this country and managed somehow to get into the Wisconsin heartland and told my city of Redacted to surrender, I'm pretty sure my city would say, get fucked. And furthermore, once we got all the women and kids out of here, furthermore, we would probably, especially under a large military might, would probably die. We would probably be deceased after that invasion. If they're going to kill us, if they're going to take the territory, they are going to have to kill every person that stands to defend it. Just like Mariupol. I'm proud of them for that. Again, not saying that Mariupol is in the right, but I'm happy that they're standing up for what's theirs. Alright, from the Daily Mail. This is an interesting one. Now keep in mind this is all the way over in Scotland. So this isn't anywhere close to what's happening over on Eastern Europe front, but still definitely one to pay attention to. Nuclear missile convoy carrying up to 6 deadly warheads is spotted on motorway going through Glasgow on the way to Royal Navy Depot. From Tom Brown. A military convoy was spotted carrying up to 6 nuclear warheads headed along the motorway through Glasgow to an arms depot on Friday. The convoy was seen only a mile south of Glasgow city centre, heading to Royal Naval Armaments Depot Coalport on Loch Long. According to Nukewatch, an organisation that tracks and monitors the convoys that transport the UK's Trident nuclear warheads. The weapons of mass destruction were a reminder of the UK's contribution to nuclear terror, the group said, amid heightening tensions between NATO and Russia, which recently put its own nuclear weapons on high alert. The route is a common one for UK defensive vehicles, where Trident nuclear warheads were also spotted in May of 2021, according to Glasgow Live. The nuclear-armed convoy passed over Erskine Bridge, headed up along the M6 motorway near Kendal, before being spotted at the M74 at Lesmahakao and arriving in Loch Long at approximately 11:30 p.m. on Saturday. So this was, for the most part, I'm guessing just a fist shake, a reminder that, hey, we got nukes too. Watch for it. That's what we've got. Are they going to do anything with them? I don't think so. They're way out of the way of everything. And because of that, because of our friends over in the LP, let's look at the map. You can't talk about foreign policy unless you can point to it on the map. Yeah, I'll be happy to hear what you have to say about foreign policy. Just point to where you want to talk about on the map. So, yeah, they're way the fuck out here. Where the liquor that I like comes from. So a good distance away here, but still a reminder of, hey, fuck around and find out. I don't think Vlad the Impaler is that stupid. From CBS. Republicans are backing aggressive policy towards Ukraine, breaking with Trump. No, that is incorrect. What is this? Totally behind. Let's listen to this. because I kind of want to hear what the turtle has to say, and then we'll go read the article.
We turn now to Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell, who joins us from Louisville, Kentucky this morning. Good morning to you, sir. Welcome to Face the Nation.
Good morning.
President Biden heads to Europe this week to meet with NATO allies. You helped give him about $13 billion in urgent support, along with the rest of Congress. What do you expect the president to deliver this week?
Well, we've given him plenty of money. I think he needs to step up his game. He's generally done the right thing, but never soon enough. I mean, let's take a look at what's happened here. The Ukrainians have killed more Russians in 3 weeks than we lost in Afghanistan and Iraq in 20 years. I think we ought to go into this believing the Ukrainians can actually win. And the way they win is for us to get these defensive weapon systems to them as rapidly as possible. For example, I am perplexed as to why we couldn't get the Polish Russian MiGs into the country. The Ukrainians have plenty of pilots, know how to fly them. Mm-hmm. In those Eastern Bloc countries, they have Soviet ground-to-air systems that the Ukrainians know how to work. We have the resources we've given to the president to get those weapons in there as rapidly as possible.
Right.
And then we provided loan guarantees to the countries that ship the weapons into Ukraine to purchase new weapons and probably better weapons from us.
And that really goes down the line of what I've known about Republicans for quite a while. And part of the reason that I can't be a Republican is because as soon as the dear leader, as soon as the Orange Man was out of office, they reverted back to their let's go bomb the shit out of every country in the fucking world mentality that they've had since the beginning of time. They turned back into Bushites. And they're trying to convince the American people to turn back into Bushites too. Republican lawmakers have spent the last half-decade following Trump's lead, even as he moved the party away from the long-held party philosophy. But when it comes to Russia's invasion of the Ukraine, GOP officials are no longer taking their cues from the former president. No, they're going back to their war pig, fucking war hawk ideals. They're going back to the party that's never seen a country full of brown kids that they didn't want to fucking bomb. Condemnation of Putin is a rare unifying force on Capitol Hill. Few Republicans are echoing Trump's description of the Russian president as savvy or smart. Former Vice President Mike Pence said there was no room for the party for apologists for Putin. Senator Lindsey Graham went as far to say that Putin should be assassinated. Look at this big war pig, war hawk. Let's go to war movement coming out of these asshole Republicans. And after the years standing by their party leader, questioned the value of NATO and the Jesus. Ugh. The propaganda just in this part of this already. And after years standing by as their party leader questioned the value of NATO and traditional global security alliances, threatened to withhold aid to Ukraine in exchange for a political favor. Ugh. As if any of that's even remotely close to what actually happened. The hell is that? So apparently my noise canceling headphones are really, really good because I heard some of what the hell that was and I thought it was a vacuum cleaner. I actually have to go and investigate this. So listen to a couple of beats here. Or I can really torture you and make you listen to Mitch McConnell again. Let's do that. Let's listen to this for a little bit while I go figure out what the hell that noise is.
Bloc, allies.
I'll be right back.
It's fine to go to Brussels, fine to go to Berlin. I'd like to see him go to Romania or Poland or to the Baltics. They're right on the front lines and need to know that we're in this fight with them to win.
There aren't a lot of policy differences here, really. You agree with the president that there should not be a no-fly zone. There's a matter of a few dozen MiG fighter jets there, but I don't hear a lot of policy differences from Republicans. In your view, does the $13 billion that you all just authorized ensure the funding of a Ukrainian insurgency if the government were to fall? Like, how long does this money last for?
Well, if they need more, we ought to give them more. Look, this is a way to have a no-fly zone in effect, to have these weapon systems, ground-to-air weapon systems, give them a fighting chance to control the air, to shoot down planes and others that are seeking to control the air, right, without the U.S. having a no-fly zone that has our own pilots in there. So I think the weapon systems are available. Look, I think we need to change our attitude here. The Ukrainians can actually win this thing, and that's the attitude we ought to have, that we're in it to help them win.
You are very clear in your language there, but...
So it appears, and I really can't fault them at this point because, you know, it is 10 to 9 in the morning, so this is about the time that industry starts. But somebody, literally 50 feet away from here, has decided that now is the time to go and run the wood chipper. I hope there are some pedophiles that are going into there. Let's keep going. But yeah, going back to what I was saying before I had to get up and figure out what was going on with that is, yeah, it's... First off, the CBS article is out there with this huge hard-on of, oh, well, he threatened to withhold aid for a political favor and publicly took Putin's word because he was in Putin's pocket. He tried to weaken NATO. None of that happened. And that pisses me off about what the mainstream media does about Trump, because there was so much. If you wanted to go after Trump, there was so much to go on. There was a massive amount to go on. If you wanted to go after Trump, you could go after the spending. You could go over the fact that he buckled like a cheap fucking seatbelt when it came to the omnibus packages and the spending that went along with that. That he took the bait and went headlong into trying to lock the country down. And turned his back. Changed his mind on the vaccines when it became politically convenient for him. You could go to all of that. There is so much that you could go after the former president for. But they have to go with, he called a threatened aid for a political favor, which didn't actually happen. He took Putin's word for it. He was a Putin puppet and he tried to weaken NATO. And he dog whistled the white nationalists. He was a Nazi. They have to make all that up because if you implicate him on the spending that he promised that he wasn't going to do, you have to implicate all the fucking Democrats with it. But yep, we're back to the Bushite war pig days. Let's keep going. From the Associated Press. Ukraine war's backdrop and the U.S. push for hypersonic weapons. Because of course it is. Because the Senate has to get their payment from Raytheon. From David Sharp. Lagging behind Russia in developing hypersonic weapons, the U.S. Navy is rushing to field its first with installation on a warship starting as soon as late next year. The U.S. is in a race with Russia and China to develop these weapons, which travel at speeds akin to ballistic missiles, but are difficult to shoot down because of their maneuverability. The Russian military says it's already deployed hypersonic missiles, claiming on both Saturday and Sunday to have deployed them against targets in Ukraine, marking the weapon's first use in combat. The Pentagon couldn't confirm the hypersonic weapon was used in the attack, but the Pentagon can't confirm it, but I'm sure that they're getting ready to go write that big check for research and development to Northrop Grumman. The American military is accelerating development to catch up. What did I tell you? The U.S. Weapon would launch like a ballistic missile and would release a hypersonic glide vehicle that would reach speeds 7-8 times faster than the speed of sound before hitting the target. In Maine, General Dynamics subsidiary Bath Iron Works has begun engineering and design work on changes necessary to install the weapon system on 3 Zumwalt-class destroyers. The work would begin at a yet-to-be-named shipyard sometime in the fiscal year that begins in October of 2023, the Navy said. Hypersonic weapons are defined as anything traveling beyond Mach 5 or 5 times faster than the speed of sound. That's about 3,800 miles an hour or 6,100 kilometers per hour. Intercontinental ballistic missiles far exceed that threshold, but travel in a predictable path, making it possible to intercept them. The new weapons are maneuverable. Existing missile defense systems, including the Navy's Aegis system, would have trouble intercepting such objects because maneuverability makes their movement unpredictable and speed leaves little time to react. Russia says it has ballistic missiles that can deploy hypersonic glide vehicles as well as hypersonic cruise missiles. And the stock options of Nancy Pelosi, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, and Chuck Schumer just went up a little bit more on their defense spending once again. So, well, there you go. That's your tax dollars at work right there. From the New York Post. Let's actually put a refresh on this because I want to see if we can get that video. Zelensky cites Ukraine's support for Jews as he criticizes Israel's indifference. From Ben Kesslin. Well, let's see what the good people of Israel are doing.
מפלגה אשר הרגה מיליונים, הרסה מדינות שלמות, ניסתה לעשות רצח עם. 102.
All right, so that's what we see coming out of Israel. Let's talk about what's happening on the ground. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered yet another emotional address, this time to Israel's Knesset Sunday, invoking the Holocaust, because of course he did, why the hell wouldn't he? While accusing the country of ignoring Ukraine's pleas for help. Ukraine made choice to save Jews 80 years ago. Now it is time for Israel to make choice, Zelensky, who is Jewish, said to a packed crowd of Poles by the video. I want to remind you of words of revered late Israeli Prime Minister Golda Meir that I think you recognize. We want to live and our neighbors want to see us dead. That does not leave a lot of room for compromise, he said. Zelensky condemned Israel's current leaders, such as PM Naftali Bennett, who has refused to provide Ukraine with Israel's Iron Dome technology that would protect it from Russian missile strikes. They are showing indifference and meditating without choosing a side, he said. And all because Vladimir Putin not get moose and squirrel. You can mediate between nations, but not between good and bad, Zelensky said, according to the Times of Israel. Everybody knows your missile systems are best, and you can definitely help our people save lives of Ukrainians and Ukrainian Jews, he said. Zelensky also questioned why Israel has not provided more aid, even as it refuses to provide its Iron Dome technology. We can ask why we can't receive weapons from you, why Israel has not imposed powerful sanctions on Russia, or why it is not putting pressure on Russian business. Either way, choice is yours to make. Brothers and sisters, you must then live with answer. People of Israel. You notice he didn't have the balls to talk to the US about that, or that way. You notice he couldn't sack up and do that over here. It's kind of interesting to see. Especially, and this is what really gets me about this, because he's appealing to Israel to try to beg Israel for help and citing Ukrainian Jews. as the reason that he needs the help off of this. Well, we're being told by Russian media and some 4chan trolls and some actual legitimate people as well. I know Arvold has been pushing on this, that the Ukrainian military is essentially comprised of Nazis. So this is just an amazingly interesting juxtaposition as we see this go. Let's grab another one from the Associated Press. Putin appears at big rally as troops press attack in Ukraine, from Kara Anna. Russian President Vladimir Putin appeared at a huge flag-waving rally at packed Moscow Stadium on Friday and lavished praise on his troops in fighting in Ukraine 3 weeks into the invasion that has led to heavier than expected Russian losses on the battlefield and increasingly authoritarian rule at home. Meanwhile, the leader of Russia's delegation in diplomatic talks with Ukraine said the sides have narrowed their differences. The Ukrainian side said its position remained unchanged. The invasion has touched off a burst of anti-war protests inside of Russia. The Moscow rally was surrounded by suspicions. It was a Kremlin-manufactured display of patriotism. Several Telegram channels critical of the Kremlin reported that students and employees of state institutions in a number of regions were ordered by their superiors to attend rallies and concerts marking the 8th anniversary of Moscow's annexation of Crimea, which was seized from Ukraine. Those reports could not be independently verified. Well, it's a nice, pretty conspiracy theory. But I'm telling you right now, if Putin had that little support in Moscow that people had to be ordered to go attend the rally, I think he would have been removed from office kicking and screaming by now. But, you know, it's what they believe. They picked the guy, and they haven't taken him out yet. So, I can believe he had the big rally like that. I can absolutely believe he had a big rally like that. He wants the people to be excited for what they're doing in Ukraine right now. So, of course, he probably has a big rally going. But we'll see what happens with that. Well, let's grab another one here from our friends over at NPR. A restaurant serving Russian food rebrands itself after Russia invades Ukraine. This is from Morning Edition's Kaylee Broussard. And remember, NPR does still need your money, so hit that donate button up at the top. As we will see, a restaurant that could be saved by communism if we just do NPR's communist ideals. Then they don't have to worry about profit because the government will just take care of them. NPR, never printing reality. National Progressive Radio, let's see what it is that they had to say. A restaurant in Arlington, Texas, called its food Russian for the past 2 decades, but threats were made after Russia invaded Ukraine, and now the restaurant is rebranding to Eastern European. That's it. That's the story. They're so virtuous. They don't want to be associated with Russia anymore. Don't you see how virtuous they are? Here we go. Apparently Aaron Lewis got into the action here while doing a concert for a solo album. Ron Filipkowski, who is completely objective and unbiased with his Ukrainian flag. Staying frontman Aaron Lewis. Maybe we should listen to what Vladimir has to say. Why are deep state trying to protect Ukraine so much? What do they have to lose? Putin is fighting the deep state right now, which is the same people we're fighting. Let's listen.
You know, as fucked up as it sounds, maybe we should listen to what Vladimir Putin is saying. Woo! Maybe, just maybe, when Klaus Schwab and George Soros and every other dirty, fucking earth-destroying motherfucker all jumps on the same bandwagon, maybe, just maybe, we should fucking take a good look at that. Why are they trying to protect Ukraine so much? What do they all have to lose? It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. Have you seen the pictures with wooden guns and all the bodies and body bags laying in the background, and all of a sudden one of the bodies starts moving and fucking sits up and fixes his fucking body bag while the person that's the reporter is reporting. People, if you haven't seen that, you better start fucking looking elsewhere. If you haven't seen Vladimir Putin actually say that he's fighting the deep state right now, which is the same people we're fighting, which is the same people everywhere on the face of this earth that people are fighting for freedom, you know, we need to reassess.
So Lewis makes some really good points in this. That's something I definitely have to come out and say this, that Lewis makes some very, very, very good points into all of this. Now, I would be willing to sit down and hear Vladimir out. If it was me, if I was in charge of foreign policy, I can't say that I would agree with him. But I don't know his side of the story. I've heard speculation about the fact that it's about NATO encroaching. It seems like hardly a reason to go back and essentially destroy a country and the infrastructure of that country and the people. But I've heard the speculation there, but I've not heard it from Vladimir himself. But as Aaron pointed out too, both Democrats in the government, but also the people on the ground, the common everyman, many of whom, now the people in the government probably could find Ukraine on a map pretty easily. But the everyman on the ground who couldn't find Ukraine on a map a month and a half ago are now telling us that it's our sacred duty to protect the Ukraine, to ensure its safety and happiness everywhere. I have questions. I do. And I've not gone down the line, like I said, of people that I know who are going straight on the Russia side. It does seem that Lewis is going that way. I don't have enough facts to go that way. I don't know what's happening here in Ukraine, why it's happening, what's going on. I get a sanitized version of what the mainstream media wants to tell us, and I get the conspiracy right-wing theory idea of what they want me to think about it as well. But realistically, I have no idea what's going on over here, and neither do most of us. And that especially includes the left wing of our country. Question everything. That should be your first instinct everywhere. From Reuters, a little bit of financial side of this. Oil climbs on pressure from Ukraine conflict and tight market. From Sonali Paul. Oil prices jumped $2 on Monday as Ukrainian forces dug in against heavy Russian attacks, while major oil producers reported they're struggling to produce their allotted quotas under a supply agreement. Brent crude climbed 196 or 1.8% to 109.89 a barrel at 0039 GMT, adding to a 1.2% rise last Friday. West Texas Intermediate crude futures rose 2.09% or 2% to 106.79, extending a 1.7% jump last Friday. Prices moved higher after Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk said early on Monday there was no chance the country's forces would surrender in the besieged eastern port city of Mariupol. So pay attention, because that's going to affect you at the gas pump. And I will confirm this because we'll probably talk about this tomorrow, but it does look like Biden is moving back onto the drill baby drill mentality, which was the smartest thing that Obama did. I don't credit Obama with a lot, but the smartest thing that he did with his presidency towards the end was turn on the pumps, turn on the drills, and turn on the rigs as fast as he fucking could, because he knew that there was no way in hell that he stayed in power. It was impossible with gas prices what they were in 2008, 2009, 2010. It was impossible for him to not get drug out of the White House, kicking and screaming, if he'd have kept that up through 2016. And now that we've got a more instant line of communication with everybody, the people who are pulling Biden's strings start to realize that, yeah, that's also probably the same thing. Yeah, electric cars would be nice, especially if we had more renewables for them. Chinese solar panels, coal, wind, etc. It'd be nice if we had more ways to do that, if we had more ways to use electric vehicles, but realistically, the technology is not there. The lithium batteries are mined by child slave labor. The recycling process is massively expensive. Yes, you can get a lot of recycled materials out of recycled batteries like that, but it's massively expensive. And I do feel that we'll get there at some point, that over 60% of the vehicles on the road will be EV. I don't think it'll ever be 100%, but it'll be over 60% will be EV. I just don't think we're there technologically yet. And I'm not anti-EV either, and I've told you guys this before. I think EVs are cool. I think if you want to have one, you should be able to go and get one. You shouldn't be able to virtue signal about getting one because of the extensive amount of coal or rare earth minerals that are used to charge it, but if you want one, you should be encouraged to get one. If you want one, you can afford it. Plain and simple. I don't want one. And I shouldn't be pressured to get one. So that's what we see off of that. Another one from the Daily Wire. So this is going to be jumping into another article, but I wanted to talk just a bit about what the Daily Wire had to say here. Eat lentils, poors, left and right slam Bloomberg article telling Americans making less than $300,000 to spend less to cope with inflation. You know, just like we had to do in 08 and 09. From John Rigolizzo. Twitter users came across the political spectrum excoriated Bloomberg for an opinion column suggesting low-income Americans find ways to lower their costs to deal with skyrocketing inflation. The column, titled "Inflation Stings Most If You Earn Less Than $300,000, Here's How to Deal," was written by Teresa Ghilarducci, professor of economics at the New School for Social Research, a private industry in New York. In it, she explains that inflation, especially soaring gas prices, will do much less harm to Americans who earn more than $289,000 a year. For those near the median income of $50,000 or less, the decisions will be much harder. Ghilarducci wrote, "If your income is more than $289,000 a year, the run-up in gas prices may be alarming, but it's unlikely to hammer your overall finances." Ghilarducci wrote, "For those experiencing earning much less, it's a different story." All right, so we could sit down here and talk about what it says, and we've got the tweet that goes with it too, which we'll look at that as well. But let's actually look at the article. So this comes from Ron Helton's favorite publication, from his favorite politician ever, Bloomberg, on the opinion page on top of it. And let's read what it is that they have to say. Inflation stings most if you earn less than $300,000. Here's how to deal, from Teresa Ghilarducci. If your income is more than $289,000 a year, the run-up in gas prices may be alarming. We read that already. Americans at that level spend no more than 1% of their take-home pay on gas and oil, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. For those earning much less, it's a different story. Those at the median, with an income of about $50K, will spend more than 3% of it on gas and motor oil. Low-income households, between $7,000 and $19,000, spend around 9%. The latest inflation numbers show gas prices jumped 6.6% in February from a month earlier, even before President Brandon banned U.S. imports from Russian oil. Economists say the overall share of income spent on gas is lower than it used to be, and despite the increases, prices are still relatively low by historical standards. That's true, but it offers little consolation these days for someone on the lower end of the income distribution who drives to work. Food prices are up also. posting their biggest monthly increase since April of 2020 there too. Those making less than $19K spend much more of their income, almost 15%, compared with higher earners whose food total spending is just 4% of their income. Households with incomes of about $50K spend about 8.5% of it on food. The most recent barometer of consumer sentiment showed the highest ever share of Americans expecting their finances to worsen in the coming year. About 54% think their incomes will lag behind inflation in the year ahead, a pretty high percentage historically. I expect those affected will adjust to inflation in the classic way by shifting away from relatively expensive items towards close substitutes. Here are some ideas on how to reconfigure consumption and lessen the blow, but again, adjustment is hard for people without savings or choices. First, you have to know your budget. To control your budget, budgeting takes effort, but it gives you power, and that power is even more important in inflationary times. To deal with gas prices, it's worth reconsidering public transportation if it's an option where you live. Fares are up about 8%, compared with 38% for gasoline. Now may even be the time to sell your car. Hey, be happy owning less. Just sell your car. Don't have a hard asset like that. Just be happy with it. It certainly isn't the time to buy a new or used one. Prices have stabilized a bit, but used car prices are still up more than 40% from a year ago, and new ones are up 12%. When it comes to food, don't be afraid to explore. Prices for animal-based food products will certainly increase. Ukraine and Russia supply a significant amount of corn and barley to the world market, mainly to feed livestock for human food. Meat prices have increased about 14% from February of 2021 and will go up even more. Though your palate may not be used to it, tasty meat substitutes include vegetables, where prices are up a little over 4%, or lentils and beans, which are up 9%. Plan to cut out the middle creature and consume plants directly. It's a more efficient, healthier, and cheaper way to get calories. This is so much of a let them eat cake. Oh, and stay away from buying in bulk. That is the worst idea in history if you're trying to save money. Stay away from buying in bulk. You usually don't save any money by buying more. Sure, there may be great deals, but most consumers wind up falling for the tricks that entice them to spend more. Things like offering free samples, which often leads to impulse buying, or placing discounted big-ticket items near the entrance. If you absolutely must buy in bulk, try to do it with a friend, so you can split some of the cost and ensure everything gets eaten or used. Aside from being more thoughtful about purchases, it's also prudent to think about unnecessary charges, so review your credit card to make sure there aren't any unwanted recurring ones. If you're one of the many Americans who became a new pet owner during the pandemic, you might want to rethink those costly pet medical needs. It may sound harsh, but researchers actually don't recommend pet chemotherapy for what you call your best friend in the house, the animal that's constantly happy to see you, which can cost up to $10,000 for ethical reasons. What kind of ivory tower bullshit is this? In all seriousness. This is the epitome of let them eat cake. Hey, you can't afford beef? Just go eat lentils. It'll be just the same, I promise. This is crap. This is exactly the same as in the State of the Union speech in 2012. Well, we lost some of those lower end jobs, but man, those jobs aren't coming back. Our economy is shifting. Just get used to it. Hey, 8% unemployment. That's normal now. Don't worry about any of that. Huh? Oh, this guy over here. Hey, he's got to work 2 jobs. Hey, double job creation. Look at me. I'm the greatest. And this goes right along with the left-wing playbook. I'm not going to say liberal or Democrat because this is not the liberal Democrat playbook. Hell, the Democrats want you to run out and spend money right now because otherwise the Russians win. But the progressive, communist, far-left playbook of just learn to live with less. You shouldn't even own any property anyway. It's all communal. This is disgusting. I bet you the people up there in the Bloomberg Ivory Tower aren't settling for lentils. I bet you they're going right for the meat section. No, those lentils, those are just for you fucking little people. Oh, you can't afford the gas? Sell your car. Take the bus. Oh, you don't live in a place where... Oh, hey, I guess you better go move to the city then, huh? Just that rural living style, that's not for you anyway. Sell your car. That's what I have to say to you, Bloomberg opinion. All right. And a little bit more on the gas prices, then we got to cover out some of the rest of the stuff we're doing here. We're almost done. Walls. Tim Walls. What is a red flag warning? There's a winter storm warning in Minnesota still. Nice. All right, Tim Walls favors $500 Minnesota stimulus checks, not gas tax holiday, to ease the pain at the pump. This goes on the line of several states that are getting rid of their gas tax temporarily to try to keep you from overspending at the pump. This is from Theo Keith over at Fox 9 KMSP. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz is pushing lawmakers to pass bigger rebate checks instead of gas tax holiday as inflation surges to levels not seen in 40 years. Walz's proposal calls for direct payments of $500 to adults who make less than $164,400 a year and up to $1,000 per couple making less than $273,470. He has tripled the size of the check since he first proposed them in January, and his admin now estimates a cost at $2 billion. The checks are a part of Walz's updated spending plan on Thursday. Politicians across the country are grappling with inflation, especially highly visible gas prices. With this fall's midterm elections looming, Walz said the direct payment could be more effective than waiving the state's 20-cent per gallon gas tax over the summer, as some Democrats have proposed. It's quite a few fill-ups that you could get out of $1,000. Walz told reporters at the gas station in New Hope, "I think this money in the hands of folks before summer would make a good difference, and it's fiscally responsible. Please come and do tourism in my state. Please come and do tourism in my state. Please come and do tourism in my state." Still, the first-term DFL governor said that he would sign a gas tax holiday if the divided state legislature passed one. Under a gas tax holiday, relief would be much slower than with a one-time payment. The owner of the vehicle with a 15-gallon tank would need to fill up 119 times before saving $500. But a rebate check wouldn't change the 2-foot-tall, record-breaking prices displayed on the gas station signs. Here's the thing. Now, I do understand, as the governor, as a representative of the people, as the executive that the people honk chose in Minnesota to execute their laws, you want to take care of the people of Minnesota. But think about this with the commerce, and this goes back to what I just said about him, paraphrasing him, pleading with people to come in, do their tourism stuff in Minnesota. See, you can throw those $500 checks out in Minnesota to Minnesotans, and that's fine and good. You will make Walmart and Amazon very, very happy when you do, because all that money is going to go right straight to those billionaires. And I know that's your donor class. But think about this for just a second. If you throw a gas tax holiday in, there are, I think, 4 major interstates that go through Minnesota. Let me double check that. I think it might actually just be 3, but still. They're not just little interstates. Oops. Shit, I didn't want to do that. So why has Google been down on and off throughout the day? Has anybody else been getting that? There it goes. So let's pull up the map over here. We'll look at some of the roads and we'll actually see how many. If Google will cooperate, because it doesn't look like it's going to. There it goes. Okay, I think there are only 3. I think I was mistaken. But still, that's 3 major interstates that haul a large amount of freight throughout the state. And several U.S. highways, too. You've got 35 that goes up to Duluth and ends in Duluth, I believe. Does it end? Yeah, it ends in Duluth and turns into 61 and heads up to Canada from there. And stays as 61 as it goes into Canada. Last time I was in Minnesota, I drove on 61 actually, oddly enough. But that was way down here. But yeah, you've got 90, 35, and 94 all go through Minnesota. Plus several U.S. state and U.S. highways, a lot of U.S. highways, U.S. 10, one of the big ones that goes through, the U.S. 71, that goes, I believe, all the way down to Texas. So there's a large amount of commerce that comes through Minnesota, even if it doesn't necessarily stop there. Plus what happens going up to International Falls and into Canada. And those people, either going through to do the tourism, to do the 10,000 lakes, or to transport cargo through Minnesota, if you don't have the gas tax and you can bring your gas lower than Wisconsin or North Dakota or South Dakota, you're going to have people waiting as long as they can to see if they can't fill up in Minnesota. Yes, it helps the people of Minnesota too, but it helps everybody else coming through there, whether they're bringing their tourism dollars, like I said, or they're bringing their commerce through there. And if they do stop to fill up at the truck stop, or the gas station, or the Quick Trip if you're in that part of Minnesota, when they stop to fill up, they're grabbing a soda, they're grabbing a sandwich, they're sitting at a restaurant, they're eating at a McDonald's. Yeah, you might get some more money flowing in Minnesota and help out more people that are exclusively Minnesota. If you just give out the $500 checks to everybody in there. But the other side of that is, I mean, if you drop the gas tax, you're bringing that much more revenue into your state. So that's something to think about with that. From the Daily Wire. Twitter locks out Babylon Bee over Rachel Levine tweet. The Bee responds, "Truth is not hate speech." From Zach Jewell. 5,000 gallons, says Quest Fanning. I don't know what 5,000 gallons is, but... On Sunday, Babylon Bee CEO Seth Dillon revealed that his company, known for its satirical takes on politics and culture, has been locked out of its Twitter account for hateful conduct. I just received this notice that we've been locked out of our account for hateful conduct, Dillon tweeted Sunday afternoon. Twitter's action came over the Babylon Bee's piece from 5 days ago, jokingly naming Health and Human Services Assistant Secretary Rachel Levine as Man of the Year. Levine, a biological man, is best known for coming out as transgender female before being appointed by President Brandon to the role of Assistant Secretary of the HHS. Recently, Levine was named as one of the USA Today's Women of the Year. Twitter flagged the Bee's post, poking fun at Levine's transition and name change for violating its rules against hateful conduct. The rule states you may not provoke violence against, threaten, or harass people on the basis of race, ethnicity, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, gender identity, religious affiliation, age, disability, or serious disease. Why did they put gender identity in there twice? Gender identity and serious disease. Dillon wrote that Twitter told the Bee that the account could be restored 12 hours after the company deletes the tweet. Linking the article on Levine, Dillon told his followers that they don't plan on deleting the tweet. "We're not deleting anything. Truth is not hate speech. If the cost of telling the truth is the loss of our Twitter account, then so be it," he wrote. On Saturday, the Daily Wire reported that Twitter took action against a tweet from Republican AG Ken Paxton, who, like the Bee, referred to Levine as a man. On Thursday, Paxton posted a screenshot of the USA Today article naming Levine as one of its Women of the Year and commented, "Rachel Levine is a man." Twitter flagged the tweet as being hateful but allowed it to remain, stating the tweet violated the Twitter rules about hateful conduct. However, Twitter has determined that it may be in the public's interest for the tweet to remain accessible. Differential enforcement, of course, for the blue check and the big government politicians out there, so they can either spread the tweet around and say, hey, look at what this evil Republican did, or just have it as public record because they have rules on public record. But realistically, yes, Levine is a man. Realistically, this is probably not the hill to die on. But what do I know? I've only ever been suspended on Twitter once, and it was for 4 minutes. For self-deprecating humor that the machine algorithm didn't understand. From the Hill. McConnell says he hasn't made a final decision on confirming to Ketanji Brown Jackson because of course he hasn't, because they intend to lose in November. From Joseph Choi. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said on Sunday that he has not made a final decision on whether he will vote to confirm President Brandon's Supreme Court nominee, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. CBS's Face the Nation host, Margaret Brennan, asked McConnell how he was leaning with regards to the Jackson's nomination, noting that he had previously voted against her for a previous appointment. While he has praised Jackson's credentials, McConnell has so far remained coy on how he will vote. They have the video of this? No, they do not. We have had a very good conversation in my office, and I asked her, typically the Supreme Court nominees, both parties, have never answered any of the questions. What they typically say is that something might come before me, and I don't want to prejudge how I might actually vote, McConnell said. McConnell noted how Supreme Court Justices Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Stephen Breyer, who Jackson would replace if confirmed, have previously spoken out against court packing. McConnell said that he asked Jackson about her stance on adding to the number of Supreme Court justices. She wouldn't do that, so in the meantime, the committee will ask her all the tough questions. I haven't made a final decision as to how I'm going to vote, he added. I'm going to listen to the evidence. I'm going to listen to the hearings, and by the way, she'll be treated much better than Democrats have typically treated Republican nominees, like Clarence Thomas and Brett Kavanaugh, said McConnell. It'll be a respectful deep dive into her record, which I think is entirely appropriate for a lifetime appointment. Okay. That's a good argument, but that's the argument that's going to be used to defeat you in November. What have I told you from the beginning? From the moment Stephen Breyer said that he was going to step down, as soon as we had a new nominee, the most prudent Republican strategy, unless the person was literally an outright criminal, which I don't think he'd be dumb enough to put that kind of person up unless they really wanted to get it blocked, which I think was the strategy by Democrats to begin with. As soon as the nominee is picked, that person should be fast-tracked through and a vote should be called and she should be confirmed the very next day. 99-0. Let the Democrats own this one. If she does suck. But it doesn't seem like she's going to suck either. So that's what we see off of that. Axios warns about the rise of white nationalist Hispanics. Coming to us from the Daily Wire's Ben Johnson. Axios has warned its readership about the latest development threatening public safety and our democracy. The rise of white nationalist Hispanics. That bewilderingly titled article attempts to drum up fear about a small but increasingly visible number of far-right provocateurs with Hispanic backgrounds who spread racist anti-Semitic messages. Authors Russell Contreras and Astrid Galvan list a number of people of Hispanic ethnic background who attacked Americans of black or Asian descent, although there's no indication that white nationalism motivated the perpetrators. One of the assailants, Jose Gomez III, also stabbed a white Sam's Club employee who intervened to stop Gomez from further assaulting the Asian family, according to the Justice Department. The other, Alex Michael Ramos, asked pointedly, "You call me a fucking white supremacist? I'm fucking Spanish. I was raised in the fucking ghetto, assholes." Axios acknowledges that non-white members of the white nationalist movement face a glass ceiling. There are limits on how accepted some far-right Latino activists can become in white supremacist and neo-Nazi circles, the website says. The article met with instant derision online. Some commentators called its premise amazing or hilarious. Conservative writer James Gerdusky tweeted, "Damn, even white nationalists have diversity outreach." Others related the sudden attempt to reposition Hispanics as incipient neo-Nazis on polls that show large portions of Latino electorate inching towards the Republican Party. "Dear people of color, minorities and immigrants, if you do not bow at the altar of the woke media and Democratic Party, you are now labeled a white nationalist," wrote Michael Gonidakis, president of Ohio Right to Life. "Now that Latinos are aligning with GOP, Latinos are the new white nationalists," wrote conservative activist Jason Matera. HotAir.com writer Jaya Shaw tweeted, "Translation, the rise of Hispanic voters who don't vote for Democrats who have ignored them and taken their votes for granted." Hear, hear. The thing with Hispanic, especially Hispanic, is partly due to the fact that you don't know who's Hispanic on first glance either. Like, I went out on a date it's been over a month ago at this point. I went out on a date with a girl a while back. First generation U.S. citizen on her dad's side. Her mom, U.S. citizen, obviously. Her mom was white. But dad jumped the border. Fairer than I am. Fairer than I am, whose background is essentially 100% Scandinavian, German, and Irish, with a few other things mixed in there off to the side. Harvey McLeod, this is another one. Mexican woman, fairer than I am. Way fairer than I am. But regardless off of that, it's the white supremacist label that's being over-applied to things like this because these people have views that they don't like. Enrique Tarrio's not a white supremacist. He's an asshole, and I think he might be a Fed, but he's not a white supremacist. Fuentes kind of is. Fuentes is. Beltran wrote in a post that white supremacy actually opposes categorizing people based on racial identity. The politics of multiracial whiteness reinforces their desired approach to a colorblind individualism. Oh, I see, because you don't go into the collective mind. That's why you're a white supremacist, because you're individualist, she wrote. Minorities who have been taken in by this crafty form of whiteness want to be understood as simply Americans outside those kinds of identity categories. So they're going against the collectivism of the left. That's what it is. Fucktards. I hate people like Axios, I really do. From NBC, families of Parkland shooting victims to get $127.5 million for FBI's inaction. From the Associated Press. Federal officials have confirmed Wednesday that the U.S. Department of Justice has reached a multi-million-dollar settlement with the families of most of those killed or wounded in the 2018 Florida high school massacre over the FBI's failure to stop the gunman, even though it had received information that he intended to attack. Attorneys for 16 of the 17 killed at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, and some of those wounded previously, announced in November they had reached a monetary settlement with the government over the FBI's failure to investigate A tip that it received about a month before the massacre, the 17th family chose not to sue. The government's announcement Wednesday said the settlement resolves 40 cases connected with the shooting for $127.5 million. The settlement does not amount to the admission of fault by the U.S., but according to the Justice Department news release. No, it's not an admission of fault, but they're at fault. It was their fault. It absolutely is their fault, and they should get all the money out of the government that they can, because that was a failure. They pay the taxes for this massive, bureaucratic, over-bloated organization that spies on everything that you do. They pay the taxes for this shit, and when something actually does slip through the cracks, when somebody isn't being spied on for everything they do, and of course it's sold to the people when they pay the taxes, it's going to keep you safe. Well, it doesn't keep them safe. They're in the right course of action for this. They have the right to do this. And I'm glad that it succeeded for them. I'd have taken them for more. From Fox News, Boston BLM leader and her husband hit with federal fraud and conspiracy charges. From Houston Keene, Monica Cannon Grant, a Black Lives Matter leader in Boston, and her husband, Clark Grant, were hit with an 18-page federal indictment for fraud and conspiracy on Tuesday. Federal authorities allege that Cannon Grant and Grant have defrauded large sums of dollars out of over $1 million in grants and donations given to the nonprofit Violence in Boston, which aims to help violent survivors in the city. Cannon Grant, a prominent BLM organizer, was arrested outside of her Beantown home Tuesday and declined to comment at the courthouse after being released on personal recognizance, meaning she'll remain free without bail, but with a written promise to appear in court. So this is a person who has just embezzled thousands upon thousands of dollars, and you're going to let her off on signature bond? Are you stupid? Which I understand. Of course, they can't slap a massive, massive fine on BLM because it's political and it's Boston. They'll get run out of their fucking courthouse, but the BLM activist has claimed innocence online, and under terms of her release from Judge Judith Thien, is allowed to continue to work at her nonprofit twice a week, but cannot handle the finances. She will be arraigned next week. Prosecutors did not say how much money was allegedly taken by the couple. Surprise, surprise. BLM was not forthcoming with their money. I'm shocked. I'm not that shocked. From WPRI.com, that is Channel 12 out of Providence. Judges, Rhode Island stun gun law violates Second Amendment. From Sarah Doiron. A federal judge has decided that Rhode Island's law against residents owning stun guns and tasers is unconstitutional. U.S. District Court Judge William Smith ruled in favor of two people who filed a lawsuit against the state in 2019. The Rhode Island residents claimed they wanted to purchase stun guns for self-defense, but state law prohibits them from doing so. In his decision, Smith says the state's ban on stun guns violates the Second Amendment, which allows Americans the right to keep and bear arms. Absolutely does. The blanket ban on possession of stun guns extends into the home and therefore implicates the core of the Second Amendment right, Smith wrote. Smith also explained in his decision that a stun gun does not implicate the safety of the public at large in the same way a semi-automatic weapon does, because the stun gun is only effective at close range. The state, according to Smith, failed to provide evidence that the ban on stun guns protects the public, and the abuse of stun guns is the real problem. In the absence of virtually any evidence to support the state's claims on its interests, a complete ban on stun guns cannot survive a Second Amendment challenge, Smith added. And there you go. Keep going. You're almost there. Once you've gone with one defensive weapon, we can go to another one, and another one, and another one, and eventually find out that the inability to defend yourself is against the Second Amendment from all enemies, foreign and domestic. So good on Rhode Island. This is a rare win for them. From the Daily Wire. Biden admin DOJ looking under every stone regarding federal crimes in Breonna Taylor case, according to Ben Crump from Ben Johnson. The Biden admin's Justice Department remains committed to looking at every possible civil rights violation that could have happened that led to the death of Breonna Taylor more than 2 years after the controversial shooting, according to famed attorney and hack Ben Crump. Crump and Taylor's mother, Tamika Palmer, met with representatives of the DOJ on Monday, more than 700 days after Taylor died in crossfire between police officers and Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker. They affirmed that they're looking under every stone for possible rights violations in this case. Ah, yes, the classic, bring me the man and I will find you the crime. Rumors swirled after the March 2020 shootout, which took place as members of the Louisville Metro Police Department served a warrant at Taylor's apartment due to her alleged connection to a suspected drug dealer. Many of those tales were spread by Crump. According to one of the officers involved in the raid, retired LMPD Sergeant John Mattingly. Crump fits the model of a grimy defense attorney who seeks to sniff out the national stories that can make him a buck, get him some screen time, and gain him more notoriety. Mattingly writes in his book, 12 Seconds in the Dark, a police officer's first-hand account of the Breonna Taylor raid. It gets on TV like a televangelist and piggyback. You know, I never thought about that, but that's probably that's incredibly accurate to what Ben Crump does. And piggybacks the tragedies that these families are going through. Mattingly says the Taylor case was no exception. Crump made his usual rounds on national television, making false and slanderous allegations about the events of March 13th and the officers involved. And yes, of course he's going to go look under every stone to go find something here because they had nothing at the scene. So now they're going to come back out and call for civil rights because they need to have a head for this. They fed the American people the idea that Breonna Taylor was nothing but an innocent victim and all cops were bastards. They fed the American people this and then they couldn't come up with a conviction off of it. So they've got to find something, anything, anywhere. I feel bad for Breonna Taylor, I really do. Because her death would have been forgotten had it not been for St. George. Remember, nobody started... Now, the thing with Breonna Taylor started. It happened 2 months before St. George passed away. Hallowed be his name. Before St. George overdosed, 2 months before that was the Breonna Taylor thing. And yet, we didn't hear her name until 3 weeks after the St. George riots started. It's almost like Ben Crump, as soon as he found out about the St. George thing, opened up the National Archives and started looking all across the country for any case involving black person, white police officer, anywhere, and tried to get it out going. And I don't believe in the situation that happened with Breonna Taylor. I really don't. She was in her home, minding her own business. That one cop should have been convicted for firing blindly in that situation. He absolutely should have been. But no, knock raids are a problem. Come back with a warrant and knock. Otherwise, you're going to get your fucking ass shot. I'm sorry. We have a legal process in this country. Go by it. But regardless, this was nothing but more political fodder to try to get Mr. Crump another buck. And the last one that we will do today comes to us from WGN 9 out of Chicago. Bob Saget's fractures possibly caused by fall on carpeted floor. From the Associated Press. Fractures around Saget's eye sockets and bleeding around his brain were possibly caused by the comedian hitting something hard covered by something soft, such as a carpeted floor, according to reports released Tuesday that provides more details of the TV star's death. In the incident report released by the Orange County Sheriff's Office in Orlando, detective notes that the medical examiner, Joshua Stephanie, said the fractures would have stunned Mr. Saget and that he would have experienced dizziness. Had he been with people at the time, they would have noticed confusion, balance, or slurred speech. The report states it does not pinpoint a location for Saget's fall. The ME concluded after the autopsy in January that Saget died from an accidental blow to the head, likely from a backwards fall. Investigators called the luxury hotel suite found no evidence of a struggle, foul play, or signs that anyone had been in Saget's suite during the stay. A toxicology analysis didn't show any illicit drugs or toxins in Saget's body. There is something else going on here. There is absolutely something else going on here, and the American people are never going to know about it. They're just going to look at this and say, oh, poor Bob Saget. Hey, what's on Netflix? All right, and with that, we are going to head out of here for the day, but the last thing that we do on a Monday is we look through one of the Ferengi rules of acquisition, figure out what it's like to be the ultra-capitalist religion of the Ferengi, and how do we apply it to our everyday life. So, where were we at? We have been going at this for quite a while, so... we finished off last week on the 59th rule of acquisition. Free advice is seldom cheap. Understanding whether it be somebody trying to sabotage you, somebody trying to tell you what he doesn't know rather than offering his expertise for a fee, a nominal fee of course, so he can make his own profit. Free advice comes with a cost, and sometimes it is the cost that something, what you were advised on, fails on you. But now we move on to the 60th rule of acquisition. Keep your lies consistent. Absolutely. Look, in sales especially, sometimes you got to stretch the truth a little bit. You don't necessarily want to outright lie if you can help it, but sometimes you got to move the truth a little bit. You got to move the needle just a little bit to keep the person interested. But you got to keep it consistent. You can't promise your product does one thing to one customer and then come back and promise that your product doesn't do the same thing to the next customer, because your customers are probably going to talk. So if you do have to stretch the truth, if you have to lie a little bit to go back and make that final sale, you have to make sure that you tell the same thing to all the rest of your customers and hope. And you know, you might lose a sale on the other side of it too, because product A supposedly does thing B, even if it doesn't, or it doesn't do it the way that you promised it in your sales pitch. You keep back and you keep telling the same customers over and over again the same thing. And it was, I mean, that was the same idea with the Lewinsky trial and Bill Clinton and everything that went on with that. You know, I smoked and I did inhale. I did not have sex with that woman. Oh, I guess maybe I did have sex with that woman. Hey, maybe a cigar is just a cigar. You got to stick with your lie. Keep them consistent. Don't tell Ken Starr one thing and go tell the federal prosecutor the next thing. So yeah, and I don't condone lying to make a sale, but if you gotta, you know, stretch the truth just a little bit, that's okay. If you gotta embellish a little bit, that's a little different than outright lying and saying something does something when it doesn't even remotely do that thing. So that's something to keep in mind as we go into this, and as we finish out, or start off the week, going out into our capitalist world. And with that, we're gonna head out of here for the day. Where's my outro music? There it is. So, thanks everybody who came by, chatted with us in the live chat, came and hung out with us, and told us how you thought about everything throughout the day, whether it be a disdain for Zionist propaganda, a disdain for the government, a disdain for gas prices, or disdain for driving. Thanks everybody who came back and joined us for that. Join us tonight for KTZed Redemption with our new opening music, Season 2, Episode 1, starting off on KTZed Redemption. So it's going to be an awesome time as we talk about the Ukraine, as we talk about the Hunter laptop, as we talk about inflation, gas prices, and all the rest. come back and join us for that. That is going to be at 5:30 Central Time, so come back and hang out with us for that. If you're on Twitch, stick around. We're going to go rating. We will see you here next time, though, for more Contemporary. So come back and see us again. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.